What's up, everyone? This is Adam, and we're back again for the Long Run podcast. Holy shit, it's been a long fucking time. Obviously, we've all been super busy. Corona kind of hit everyone, but joining me today, we've got two people, definitely not as large as many of the other podcasts we've had, but during these times, you have to make do with what you have. Joining me today, we have, of course, Mark Krapinski. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's going on?
Good to hear from you, man. I know that you've had a lot of stuff on your plate and starting your career and all that. Doing okay?
Yeah, getting by.
Good to hear, man. And of course, joining us also, another veteran of the podcast is Andrew. How you doing, Andrew?
Good, longtime fan. Excited to do this once again.
Yes, a
Looking forward
long
to
time
it.
fan converted into someone who's actually on the podcast now. So this isn't to say that we're taking open applications. Andrew's just that special of a guy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
man.
Adam. Appreciate it.
Of course, brother. So today, gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's latest movie. I have a lot of thoughts on this movie. I just saw it last week, and I know both of you have seen it quite a whiles away. But I guess before we even get into like the movie itself, I'd love to hear both of your opinions on just Quentin Tarantino and his filmography. How do you guys feel about him as a filmmaker? Were you excited going to the movie? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, do you want to go first, Mark, or do you want me to go?
I could go. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this.
shoot.
Yeah, this one. I mean, I like Tarantino. I still there's some of his stuff that I haven't gotten around to seeing just yet. But generally speaking, I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino. He makes quality movies.
Right.
So I was pretty hyped for this one, especially because I like that whole '70s aesthetic. But I gotta say, did not expect to like it as much as I did. I think
Oh,
I really dug this. When
Okay,
I
this
first
is
saw it.
interesting. I can't wait to hear your take. Okay, how about you, Andrew?
All right. I just want to say, I was very excited to do this podcast today, just because Quentin Tarantino is one of my favorite directors. I must have seen pretty much all of his movies at least like 3 or 4 times. Not kidding. Not even kidding you. Kill Bill
Wow.
is one of my favorite movies of all time. Pulp Fiction is right up there. I went into this movie with high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
The last movie I saw, I don't remember if it was, might have been Django. Was that the last? No, he did the Hateful
Yeah,
Eight, right?
Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight
Hateful
was
Eight.
his one before that, correct?
Yeah. I mean that movie was passable. I went in higher hopes with this one because I was kind of excited to it. Because there was a good line of great actors and everything.
Right.
And I have to say, I was I was not very satisfied, in all honesty. I
Ooh,
Ooh,
this is gonna be a
not
good
very.
podcast, boys. This is gonna be a good one. Sorry, Andrew. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see his movies progress. Like his movies are always evolving, but they still have that Tarantino feel when you go see one. This one was just kind of a letdown. I found it kind of boring at times, kind of slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of the acting was kind of like, I mean, it was good, but it just felt like very. I don't know. I feel like I just felt kind of like it was not one of his best directed movies, in all honesty.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. We got ourselves a podcast today. So I feel like obviously Quentin Tarantino, one of the most acclaimed filmmakers of his generation, like the only person who I think has gotten as much like not only attention in terms of like at the box office, but also critical acclaim as Christopher Nolan. Like they are both filmmakers who they can make whatever they want, and Hollywood will be like, yeah, sure, just take the money, like go make it, kind of thing, right? They can make any vision that they want because that's how successful they've been in the past, right? I got to be real with you. I did not think that Hateful Eight was good. Like, I think I got an hour in. I was like, I'm so bored. And I just turned it off, kind of thing.
really?
Agreed.
Now, I only tried once, so it's not like I tried a lot. I love Django Unchained. I think Django Unchained is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
When I first saw Pulp Fiction, I didn't get it. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, okay, I get it. And the whole point of it is that it's the joke, right? I thought it was like supposed to be like super dark and like a really, really big commentary when it's really almost like a spoof film in a way. Just like what would actually happen if you followed around like hitmen, right? So I think Quentin Tarantino is definitely a really, really good filmmaker, and I overall really love his movies. I definitely think he's a fanboy. I think everyone would agree that he's a fanboy. Like, if you ever hear him talk,
Absolutely.
my
Absolutely, yeah.
God. He also definitely has a thing for feet. Like, in this movie, holy Jesus. It's like, God, man, back the camera up. But I'm gonna lean. I'm gonna be like the middleman here. I think that this was a good movie, but it never really knocked it out of the park for me. I think there are certain parts I really loved and almost like wish that I could see more of. And then there was other parts I was like, okay, like let's go, let's keep moving, blah 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 blah. So I guess like just to start off with for you, Mark, what did you feel like really struck you, right? Because you said you think this is one of his best movies, right? Which is saying something, right? The guy who's made Pulp Fiction, right? Reservoir Dogs, Django Unchained, what have you. Well, what was it about it that stuck out to you?
I mean, admittedly, as somebody who's still working through his filmography, for me it was just the atmosphere, man.
Mm,
Like I know a lot. The big criticism I've seen from a lot of people for this one is that there's a lot of shots of just cars.
right.
It's just a lot of driving around Hollywood, but that's kind of what I loved about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I mean, everybody's talked about this one, just how much money you can see on that screen. There's so many vintage cars, so
Right.
many vintage billboards. Like they put in the work. They could have CGI'd it. They could have just, they could have made it cheap, but it's so organic. There's so many extras. There's so many cars driving around, and it's those scenes where it's just the atmosphere is washing over you, and it got me completely immersed. I could totally see how some people would find it kind of dull,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
like all of that stuff, just the choice in music, the fact that over the credits they're playing old radio ads. There's even a bit with Adam West in there talking about
Oh
Batman.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
I remember that.
it's so rich and densely ingrained in the time period that it's set in, that I don't know, just the whole thing, it was crushing it for me.
I mean, I'm gonna agree with you. I think that the production design, things from I guess like outside the plot. Like if we take out the plot and the story, I think it knocks everything out of the park. I think the music in the movie is amazing. Like you said, they really recreate that era of Hollywood in an incredibly authentic way. I think like the costume design was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like you really get transported to Mark's point. So I think that all of that is correct. I think even like what you said, Mark, about the shots. Like there's a lot of lingering, but I also think in general there's some like really gorgeous cinematography in the movie. Just the way the shots are framed, what's in the background, what's in the foreground, kind of thing. So nothing really to add from me here. What about you, Andrew?
So what was the question?
Well, really, it's just more like, what did you, Mark? The question I asked Mark was, what was it about the movie that really struck him? And he said, he's talking about the overall feel, the atmosphere of the movie, both from a visual, music, production standpoint. I was just going to ask if you felt the same, or if you feel like that was good, but despite that, you still didn't really feel like you liked the movie. Like, how did that play into
Okay.
how you felt about the movie?
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So what I love about Tarantino as a whole, like when he directs movies, he always throws in at least one really big twist, like at the end, or just something surprising that you don't expect.
Right.
The ending, spoiler alert, none of the characters that were supposed to die, because they actually died in real life, but they didn't get
Mm-hmm.
killed this
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to survive the whole time. And you saw all these like famous Hollywood actors, people playing Hollywood actors. Like I loved the Bruce Lee scene. That I loved that
Oh
one.
my
That was
God,
probably
that could be a podcast on its own, my friend. We will go into that
okay.
later, but keep going, keep going. Yeah.
Absolutely, Bruce Lee movies, like freaking forget it, dude. Like I love them,
Right.
but I just felt like there was just so much going on at certain points. Like I could not stay on track with the movie. I thought the people that were acting in the movie were doing a really good job. The guy that played Charles Manson, uh, phenomenal acting.
Right.
But
Right.
I just felt at times it was very slow. Like what I said before, it was just kind of like, I actually fell asleep for like 5 minutes. My girlfriend had to wake me up. I just felt like it just was not something that I expected to be bored with, and I was. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what it was. I think it was just like it was very long movie too.
Oh, it's
Very
definitely
long.
definitely has a long run
Mm.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt like they were just throwing in too much, and I feel like less is more for Tarantino because, like, Tarantino can do anything, and I would love it. That's just how I am. I love his directing, but this one was just not a home run for me.
Right, right. So I forgot to say this in the beginning, but this is like a full spoiler review and just discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie, even though it came out like last year,
It's been out for a year.
this is definitely not definitely not the video to watch. So we're gonna be going super in depth, guys. That's really interesting that you say that. I think definitely one of the things I liked about it, to kind of your point, Andrew, is that I'm glad that Tarantino didn't like really go in depth about like the Manson murder. I was really nervous about that and like how he could have almost like glorified those, but it's really like plays an incredibly small part in the overall like plot of the movie, which I was very very happy to see. And I definitely agree with you though on the runtime part and just like kind of meandering of the movie. I think that Tarantino definitely needs like either a really good editor, like improved editor that he has, or in general, like he might have gotten to that point in Hollywood, people like have a hard time saying no to him. You know what I mean? Like kind of like the George Lucas problem, right? Where you get surrounded by yes men. I feel like he might need some people to challenge his ideas because I think that if you kind of let him run wild, then you get a movie that's a little too long. And I definitely felt like that for this movie. There's
This
a little bit of
definitely
fat.
felt like this is the Quentin Tarantino version of like, I'm just gonna put a bunch of stuff that I like in a movie.
Oh, definitely, one
I
hundred
couldn't
percent.
agree
I
more.
was
Have some
that's
old cars,
I
have
was
some
gonna
Margot
say.
Robbie feet. We're just gonna have everything.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, Mark, that's like you basically said everything I just said in like less than 5 words or whatever. So great job on that. But go on that kind of thought though, like that Tarantino kind of just used what he liked in the movie. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on it.
Oh yeah,
Oh, going back.
one thing that I really dug because you brought up the whole Manson element. It's like, like that stuff was in all the trailers, so you know
Right.
that it's like, okay, Sharon Tate is there. Everybody knows what happened with that. You know that that's going to be a part of the story, but you don't know going in how big of an aspect that is. And I love how it's all happening in the background. It's not a movie about Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate and all of them. It's not a movie about Charles Manson. It's about literally the people that live right next door to them.
Yeah.
So this whole independent story is going on, and then like every so often, it's like, oh yeah, Charles Manson showed up. Uh-oh. And that's just it's like the old Hitchcock thing where it's like a bomb is under the table and none of the characters in the movie know about it, but the audience does. So the whole time you're sitting there engaged in the story, but part of your mind is like, that bomb's gonna go off. And then it keeps ticking and ticking and ticking, and then finally we get to the climax, and that payoff is where it all comes together.
Oh man, the payoff. Okay, I don't know if we want to talk about that now, but there is one thing that I do kind of want to add. I'm very curious to see if you agree with this, Andrew. But for me, one thing that really stuck out to me is I felt like we were going and going and going, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we have to end this movie. So then like went on like when he went to Italy, and then like there started a narration and would just like summarize like 6 months into like a 10-minute scene. So I was like, what is happening right now? Felt like incredibly jarring. Like to me it almost felt like Quentin Tarantino was saying like, "Oh yeah, like this movie's already at like 2 hours, and like we haven't even told the ending yet." Like I bet you if you let Tarantino go all the way, he would have filmed all those things of like Leonardo DiCaprio going to Italy and filming all those spaghetti westerns and stuff like that. Like
That's its own Tarantino movie.
oh, 100%. It just felt very disjointed and not what's the word? Like it didn't feel like a smooth transition, part of like a complete whole. Like very tacked on. It's just like, oh wait, we need to tell people what happened in between this and when the actual murders supposedly happened, right? And it was just like, okay, let's do a 10-minute montage. It wasn't even like a good montage either. But I don't know. How did you feel about that, Andrew? Did you feel the same way? That's something that really struck me. I was like, okay, this is like very lazy in a way.
Yeah, I would have to actually pretty much agree with you. I just feel like the first 2 hours of the movie. Now, everyone will have their different opinions, but the first 2 hours felt like 4 hours. Like most of the big action, like the big scenes, like it felt like it was picking up after the 2 hour mark because it was almost 3 hour movie. The first 2 hours just like really slow, and then it started picking up, and then it just abruptly ends at the last 10 minutes, like the last 10-15 minutes of the movie.
Right.
I just felt like it was kind of like everybody knew kind of like what was going to happen at the end, but then it was a twist, which was nice, which I love about Tarantino. But I don't know. I just felt like it was just kind of dragging on, and then like what you said before, the montage sucked in my opinion. But
I'm glad someone else felt the same way because goddamn, it really took me out of the movie. I was like, oh my god, really? Like this is what we're doing?
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a little odd. I liked it because I like the whole, like, Tarantino clearly has such a love for like spaghetti
Oh,
westerns and all that.
definitely. His
So
inner fanboy was showing for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that it's like, okay, now Leo's going to go do some stuff in Italy. It's like, that's fun, but also like it doesn't add much to the movie, and it is kind of jarring to where it's like, okay, now we're going to skip ahead a little bit, have some narration come in.
Right, right.
I felt like this. I
We're
felt
coming
like
up
we
on
were
the 3 hour
watching
mark.
like
Go ahead, Andrew.
yeah, I felt like we were watching Tarantino's like ultimate like playground, like his whole. We were like in his mind, and he had so many different ideas and stuff going on, and we saw it, and the execution of it was just like not on point. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Right.
he put all of his ideas in one movie, and he didn't even need to do all of his ideas. He could have done half of them, or even like a
Yeah.
small portion of them. It would have been an amazing movie, but it just felt overly cluttered
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If that makes any
definitely.
sense.
It
In a
kind of
way, it,
yeah.
it does have all of his stuff in it. There's a kung fu fight,
Oh
there's
yeah.
western shit, there's
Yeah.
crime shit, there's 70s period shit,
Oh yeah.
there's literally every single Tarantino like trademark shows up, if only even for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of what you said earlier, Mark. It's like we all visited Quentin Tarantino's house, and he's like giving us a tour of his house. Like, guys, look at all my stuff. Isn't it really cool? This stuff is
Yeah.
really cool, right? And it doesn't necessarily make the like complete sense all in a row, but it individually, like, they're all cool pieces. Like,
This is Quentin Tarantino making a Quentin Tarantino movie.
definitely. Like so to Andrew's thing, I thought the first 2 hours were slow at parts, but to me, like I'm gonna be real with you, like I did not care for the Sharon Tate like part of the story like at all. Like
Oh, great. Agree.
I understand why they were trying to like the purpose of it, and I remember I read online that one of the relatives of Sharon Tate said that she really liked the movie because it gave like the world a chance to understand who Sharon was, but then not be defined by the fact that she died, kind of thing. And like I can totally understand that, and I'm happy for that. But I think narratively it was like just not there for me. I think all the stuff that has to do with Leo and Brad Pitt was by far the best parts of the movie. Like I loved Leo's like small arc of like acting and like trying to get out of his his rut. I thought that was fantastic, and I also loved what's it called, Brad Pitt's like escapade to like the ranch, like the if the
That was the best.
it was amazing.
It was the best.
Like I was not expecting to like have more tension in that than like any recent horror movie I've seen since Hereditary. Like the tension in that scene when he's in the bedroom and he's going down the hallway, I was like, wow. First off, the first thing I said in my mind was like, why didn't Quentin Tarantino do a horror movie? What are we waiting for? Let's do it, kind of thing. But that's what really stuck out to me for those first 2 hours.
This Brad Pitt is going to put on a Hawaiian shirt and he is going to beat the fuck out of so many hippies. He's going to brutalize some hippies.
Yeah, you know what, Adam, I do have to agree with you. Like when like I loved seeing I think Leo played it was Rick Dalton or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I actually really that was my like that was what I felt like was like the high of the movie, like showing like how the actors actually are in Hollywood, like how they feel, like the stress that they get put under playing different characters, like the fame getting to their heads, the money and all that. I love that. And then you have Cliff. I think that was I think Brad Pitt did a great job in this movie too. But I felt like when they threw in Margot Robbie, it was kind of like I don't know. I felt like it was just like a separate movie. Like they could have just
Yeah,
done a
yeah.
separate movie just on her.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
I feel like they should have focused mostly on Leo and Brad the whole time.
I
Like that would
feel
be amazing, in my opinion.
I feel like her inclusion was more like symbolic than having it tied to the actual plot. Because like the whole movie as a whole, like it's even called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like it's a love letter to like the mythic kind of fairy tale age of the old school Hollywood star, and how
Right.
like the dawn of the 70s and the murder of Sharon Tate is kind of when that all started to fade away.
Definitely.
Whereas this is like a little snapshot of like, look at this great time when stars were stars, and wouldn't it be great if all these people weren't horribly murdered? Wouldn't it be great if Hollywood did lose its sense of innocence and just kept making movie magic?
Oh boy, Quentin
Right.
Tarantino, the ultimate hipster. Am I right? No, I definitely understand. Like that's part of what Quentin Tarantino was doing, and to our point, I think we've all agreed that it is a really good love letter in the sense of how it depicts Hollywood back then, and how it probably glorifies it a little bit. I guarantee it wasn't as good as we all remember, but
Yeah.
I still think it's really good in that sense. I love to hear more though, since we've already touched on it, like the parts of Leonardo DiCaprio as well as Brad Pitt, their arcs. What did both of you really like about those? It seems like that was all of our favorite parts of the movie. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Mark, you want to go first?
In terms of favorite parts,
Yeah. Of those two specifically. Let me talk about the other stuff too.
of which two specifically?
Of Leo and Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, Leo, I loved his performance in this. Normally, I find him to be a little inconsistent, but I think he crushed it in this one.
100% agree.
He was great. Uh, and I mean, Brad Pitt. Just anytime he was on screen, I was happy. All of his scenes were so good. Like when you could give me a Quentin Tarantino movie and one of the best scenes in the whole movie is just him feeding a dog. Like that scene where he goes back to his trailer. The whole time
Yeah.
I had a big ass smile on my face. I was like, this is a fun scene. Nothing's happening. He's just cooking some chili, drinking a beer, and feeding his dog. And this is a great little scene. It's a great little character bit. But I mean, of course, there's the Bruce Lee fight. That whole
Oh, boy.
sequence is great.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
All
My
right.
I
favorite.
love the kind of Robert Wagner connection they have, where uh, Kurt Russell drops the bomb on the audience that apparently uh, Brad Pitt's character is been accused of murdering his wife, which is very similar to there's a real life story by it was this guy Robert Wagner who played he was number 2 in the Austin Powers movies,
Mm-hmm.
where it's there's rumors that he murdered his wife Natalie Wood, but nobody's really sure because it was Robert Wagner, Natalie Wood, and Christopher Walken of all people on a boat. And they went out,
Christopher
they came
Walken.
back, and Natalie Wood wasn't with them. And they were like, there was a boating accident. She drowned. She fell overboard. We woke up the next morning. She was gone. We don't know what happened.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
And it's half of like, oh, what happened? And half of, oh, that was a tragedy, or who knows.
Right.
So obviously it was kind of an homage to that. But I love the fact, to get into favorite stuff with their characters, I love the fact that the movie endears us to Brad Pitt, where it's like, oh, he's a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's a loyal friend. He's the kind of guy that everybody wants to be friends with. He's the guy that'll drive you around. He'll help you. He'll help you out. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
And then right when you start liking him, they're like, he murdered his fucking wife. And then the movie gives you no clarification on if he actually did or didn't. And it's just like, no, it's an unsolved mystery. You're never gonna know. Draw your own conclusion. Was he always a good guy and his wife did actually die in a complete freak accident? Did he actually murder her and that's why he's a cool guy now, like he's trying to make amends? Like nobody knows. Figure it out. Draw your own conclusions, and I love that shit.
I mean, I loved it too. I think that Brad was my favorite part of the movie. I'm gonna be 100% real with you. I
Yes.
never thought I would say that, and that's not a knock on Brad Pitt. He's a great actor. I just wasn't expecting that part of the movie to be my favorite. I before I kind of just throw it over to you, Andrew. I do want to just talk about the Bruce Lee scene. Like let's just get it out there. So the Bruce Lee scene, where Cliff fights Bruce Lee, and it's technically tied 1-1. But, a lot of people got really, really upset about it. I think that, at least going by Reddit, which is probably not the best thing to measure by. Reddit didn't seem to think it was that bad, but I think I saw so many people in general get really offended by it. And I think the more I looked into it, the more I kind of understood it. But I don't necessarily think I agree with it. But I'd love to hear both of your takes because you seem to both really like it. But do you think that Tarantino might have gone too far, anything like that?
Well, my opinion, Bruce Lee should have really kicked his ass. Like, no, it's not even a fair fight. Like, Bruce Lee would have knocked the crap out of him in 5 seconds, in all honesty.
Right.
The fact that he lost that, I mean, I've seen I've seen all Bruce Lee's movies. Like,
Right.
Austin can vouch for me. I love Bruce Lee movies, and that whole Bruce Lee scene, like, I was so excited to see the fight, and then, yeah, like, it was definitely one of my favorite scenes. But seeing him lose, I was like, they shouldn't have done that. Like, Bruce Lee could, in real life, take him down in 5 seconds, like, probably less than 5 seconds.
Sure.
But I could see why people would get mad about that and upset, because, like, people that knew him knew that he was, like, one of the greatest martial artists of all time, and, like, if anyone goes up to someone like that, like, you're gonna lose.
Right. What did you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's just. I mean, on its own, I think it's a very funny scene,
Right.
and I think in that respect, it really works. In terms of like what it was trying to say, that's where I think it gets a little bit fuzzier.
Right.
Because like I read some stuff where apparently there were like because Bruce Lee was on the Green Hornet, he was Kato.
Yeah.
And so apparently there were stories of like when they would film the Green Hornet, it's like Bruce Lee would go a little too hard, and it's like, hey, the rest of the stuntmen aren't Bruce Lee. Like, you're kicking the shit out of our stuntmen. Tone it down a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe it was kind of like a little wink at that regard, or maybe it was just meant to kind of gas up Brad Pitt, because I think the fight happens before the wife reveal happens, like right before.
I'm pretty sure because it happens when he's on like the ceiling, right, fixing which is also a great scene, by the way, when he goes into the roof to fix like the TV satellite or whatever. It was so funny, that antenna, and he just like remembers kind of thing.
And he's just remembering beating the shit out of Bruce Lee one day, and then Kurt Russell gets mad at him, and he's talking to Leo, and he's like, he killed his fucking wife, and it's like, so I wonder if that wasn't just in there to additionally build up, because I feel like one of the tricks this movie constantly plays is, who this person is in real life, so we're going to use that to help your understanding of where this movie is. Like, you walking in, who Charles Manson is.
Right.
If you don't know who Charles Manson is, when you get that scene where Charles Manson knocks on the door and goes, hey, I'm Charlie, I'm just coming around to see if so-and-so's around, you don't understand the significance of the scene.
Right.
But if you understand who Charles Manson is, they don't need to build tension or drama or anything, because it's already there, because holy shit, that's Charles Manson. You know who he is, you know what he does.
Right.
So I think it was a similar situation where it's like, everybody knows who Bruce Lee is. Everybody knows Bruce Lee is the shit. Here's our original character. And to establish to you in like 60 seconds how cool and badass this guy is, he's going to whip the shit out of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that wasn't the premise, to where it was just, we're just going to establish real quick, this is how cool Brad Pitt is. Bruce Lee, this guy could beat up Bruce Lee. So power level established.
Yeah.
Now when the climax rolls around and him and his dog are soloing like a half dozen Manson killers armed with knives and guns, and he kills one of them with a can of beans. Now you understand how this happens.
Well, if we're gonna get to the ending scene, we're gonna get there, because that was I think all of us really enjoyed that scene too.
My mouth was hanging open in a giant fucking grin. It's like a 5-minute long scene, and I don't think my mouth closed for a second.
It was fantastic. Great. It was fantastic. So the Bruce Lee scene is interesting. Like, I think Mark brings up a great point of what it's trying to accomplish narratively, right? Because that scene does like a lot of things to develop the Cliff character, right? You learn to his point about how he has this questionable past, and also you clearly see that he's good at fighting. Whether that's actually real or not, it seems like it was real. And I think it also puts,
he's a real salt of the earth guy.
Yeah, and it also kind of puts into question too, because it's not like it's a 100% like true flashback. Like, it's him remembering, and we all know when we remember things, we have a tendency to like gas things up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could have been a way closer fight, but in Cliff's memory, it's like, nah, I dominated kind of thing.
That's actually a really good point, because it's in a flashback, and it's like Bruce Lee's being like really cocky, like he's wearing gloves and shit.
Right,
And he's
right.
like, what the hell is it's such a good line where he's like, I admire Cassius
Yeah,
Clay.
and
I
then
do.
and
but
he's
I
like,
could totally beat his ass.
right,
like,
right.
He's doing that thing, and then it's like there's a little bit later on in the movie where he's training like Sharon Tate in like self-defense or something.
Yeah, like I think he was.
And he does his body language is totally different. Like he seems like a totally normal guy.
Right.
So it could be more of that like unreliable narrator type thing.
No, totally. And see, like the thing is, I think people get really upset. Okay, so as someone who's an Asian American and also someone who loves Bruce Lee, I totally understand like that we all venerate Bruce Lee. Like, for God's sake, he's basically like Asian Martin Luther King. Like he's like the kind of guy that like you really have to watch what you say, and you can't really say bad things about him because of how much he means to, not only Asians but also Asian Americans. So on the one hand, I get it. On the other hand, too, like this is not the first time we've ever told stories about Bruce Lee that are blatantly untrue. Like, you know how many Bruceploitation films were made after he died, where he like came back from the dead and like did random stuff? It's like, why are we getting mad about like this like cartoonish version of him? Like, I totally understand that like one could interpret it being like disrespectful, but to me, it's just like it was like an SNL sketch skit that was like in the movie in a way.
As far as disrespectful depictions of Bruce Lee in movies, I don't think you could top having actual footage of his real life funeral as a plot.
Oh, 100%. Don't even get me started on that. I think like I read that his sister was really upset at how they portrayed him, not in the sense that he lost the fight, but how he was cocky, which I can understand. Like, God, like her brother's dead. Of course, she's gonna have a personal like.
Because he was always a humble guy.
Exactly. So I think that. I understand, and they have every right to feel that way. But I think from a purely storytelling perspective, it's fine, it's okay. Could they have done it a little bit better? Yeah, probably, I guess. But I don't think it was egregious. And I'm sure if you actually asked Quentin Tarantino, he'd probably tell you every single fact about the Bruce Lee movies because he's a fucking fanboy. I think what makes it tragic is in the sense of that, as much as all three of us in this call are really big fans of Bruce Lee, we all know there are those normies out there, right, who never watched a Bruce Lee movie, and that they're going to watch this movie and assume that that's what he was all about, even though he wasn't. Like, he was deeply philosophical. He basically invented mixed martial arts and all that other stuff. And yeah, I think that's unfortunate, but like, you can't ask Quentin Tarantino to make him the Messiah when it doesn't match his vision. You know what I mean?
Right. Have you guys ever seen the movies IP Man before?
Yeah, Ip Man, yeah.
All right, or Ip Man, yeah. The guy that portrays Bruce Lee in those movies, I think it's the third and fourth one, right?
Yep, you're on the same page.
Yeah, I think that the person that did that, his personality was way more on point with Bruce Lee's than the guy that portrayed him in Once Upon a Time.
Right.
Yeah. He seemed a little too cocky, and it was kind of like you're playing him in a video game rather than just an actual person almost.
Yeah, like caricature for sure. Like he was, my brother was laid on a little thick for sure.
Right.
But overall, I think we're all in agreement though that it was still a good scene. And also, like, just so people are clear who are listening, like Bruce Lee probably would not be able to beat Cassius Clay. You want to know why? Because Muhammad Ali was like 6'7" and like 240 pounds. Like there's a huge size difference. Like, let's not get into this whole thing about like, no, Bruce Lee would definitely beat Muhammad Ali. It's like, guys, like there's a reason why weight classes exist. Calm down.
This discussion was the entire reason Quentin made this movie.
Yeah, like Bruce Lee's a great fighter. Oh my God, like trust me, he's a great fighter. Is he gonna overcome someone that's like has almost like 100 pounds on him? Maybe
he's literally twice his weight and height.
No. Anyway, let's get to that ending scene because I think that's something that we all three of us want to talk about.
It's definitely a big piece of the movie.
Oh, 100%. So is
the big fat blood-soaked cherry on this parfait.
The capper, for sure. I was not expecting this at all because I was like, wow, like, Quentin, you're really holding back. Like, there's no N-word. You guys aren't, like, cursing that much. Like, there's not much gratuitous violence. It's like, wow, Quentin, you really evolved as a filmmaker. Then he gets here to this, and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Good stuff.
And then Leo immolates a hippie with a Nazi flamethrower in his pool shed.
Yeah. So I've heard a couple criticisms about the ending, kind of scene, just because like most of it has to do with it not it's too big of a tonal shift. I've heard that before. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I'd love to hear both of your takes in general of just what you thought of the scene. Was there anything that really stuck out to you? And if you think that the tonal stuff is really something that people like, is that a valid criticism at all?
Well, I loved. I was cracking up for like a straight 2 minutes.
I was dead, bro. It was so funny. I was dead.
When the girl was charging him like with the knife, and he throws the can of dog food at her face and completely messes. I was literally dying, and I thought it was really funny, and I thought it was the most enjoyable part of the movie, in my opinion. Like, I felt like the last, like, I don't know how long the fight was, 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
That was just, like, something that I was just like very invested in the most, and I just felt like it felt very Tarantino-ish at the very end. Like, I was like, okay, this is what I love about Tarantino. Like, when he does funny crap like this. Even in Django, he did stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I could see why people may have gotten upset, but for me, it was the home run of the movie. That was the part of the movie that I really loved and enjoyed the most.
I totally agree with you, man. How about you, Mark? How'd you feel about that scene?
I loved it. In hindsight, I definitely get some Inglorious Bastards vibes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In terms of like the alt history, and then it's like, let's just end in an orgy of violence. And it's funny because wouldn't it be wonderful if this is what happened, if these horrible people, instead of going on to do the horrible things that they did, were comically destroyed by Quentin Tarantino characters.
Yeah, even in Django Unchained, they have that, right? Where the ending is just comical at how violent it is.
I remember seeing Django in the theater in high school, and like there are a lot of laughs in Django.
Oh yeah.
They pale in comparison to the bit where he shoots, I think it was supposed to be like Leo's wife or something, whoever that was, when he shoots the lady and she gets yanked back by like a bungee cable.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like plaster was falling out of the ceiling. People were laughing so hard. Like, I mean, honestly, like Tarantino, he's got a great eye for just slapstick comedy. And he covers it up in all the blood and gore. But if you strip it down to its basics, the shit is funny because it's basically a Three Stooges routine.
And when that girl is
people,
like,
yeah.
No, sorry, what were you saying, man?
Oh no, yeah, go on.
Like, my laughing was toning down once like she got hit in the head with the can of dog food, but then when she went in the pool, and Leo just whips out the flamethrower.
Remember the flamethrower from like a toss-away gag in the first act?
I legit could not breathe. I was dying, dude. Like, it was so freaking funny. Like, honestly,
when I saw it, I was the youngest person in my theater by what looked like a good 30 years.
Oh.
And they were losing it when the flamethrower came out.
That is awesome.
It was a remarkable experience being in a theater
after seeing
with a bunch of older people.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, this is nice nostalgia. And then by the end, it's like it was like their Avengers Assemble moment. It was like, do it.
Once I saw this movie, I realized that Tarantino could really just do a complete comedy movie. Like I think he would do really well in like a really violent comedy movie. Like, this was like on the verge of like being. I don't know if I don't know if it would be complete comedy, but it had comedy elements into it. But if he just did a comedy movie, I would be all about that.
100%. I think Tarantino has always had a really, really good comedic timing. That and the writing is always so sharp. I mean, like, come on, guys. How many people have quoted Pulp Fiction all the time? Like, I don't remember asking you a goddamn... Like, come on. Like, everyone... so many memorable lines in all of his movies.
Just the blending of comedy and tension. Like, the whole opening of that final fight scene. Like,
yeah.
You've got that tension because it's like, oh boy, this is the night when it happens, you know. Brad Pitt, he's high on acid. Like, what's going to happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the tension's building and building and building. and they kick in the door, and his reaction is to just kind of look at him with like this goofy grin and just go, can I help you?
Yeah.
As they're pointing a gun at their head, and it's like you don't know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
You're laughing, but there's like a little bit of nervousness to that laugh. It's great.
Yeah.
And the dog runs up to his balls.
Oh
and,
my
like,
God, dude! I'm not gonna lie. Like, I went to a 12-year-old at that moment and just started dying. I was like, he got bit there. Ha! Like, it was so funny.
Could not agree more.
I loved when the Italian wife got brought out too, and then like and then she got caught up in all of it too. It was so funny. I even like the part that right before it, right, where they're all in the car and like they're talking like, hey, like it's their fault that we're like this because we like grew up watching violent shows, and it's like, yeah, you're right. It's like all that stupid like hippie garbage that like you say when you're that young, just like, yeah, like I'm 14 and this is deep kind of thing.
That's the other big Tarantino moment. It's like if you ever seen that wonderful interview from like years and years and years ago where it was him versus just some pearl clutching older lady who was campaigning, think of the children, violence in movies, all that. And there's this wonderful moment where she's trying to understand him. She can't wrap her head around people finding something like Pulp Fiction funny, and she's just like, but why all the violence? Why do things need to be so violent? And he just cuts her off and goes, because it's so much fun.
I also love the part too where they're walking up and the girl's like, wait, I left the knife, I gotta go back, and then she just bolts out. She's like, all right, I'm out. It was so funny.
Maya Hawke goes and steals their car. They're just buffoons.
It was great.
In real life, the Manson family were a bunch of cold-blooded killers, and they murdered a bunch of innocent people. But while you're experiencing the magic of movies, wouldn't it be fun if they were buffoons who all died painfully and embarrassingly?
it was really good. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, you know what I really liked about this movie? I liked how they they showed like how serious, like I think they did the Manson family like pretty, I wouldn't say spot on because I wasn't there, but like I've read up a lot about like how they were with like their cultish attitude and stuff like that. When like they brought Cliff into that little
the ranch.
Yeah, the little ranch, and you saw like everybody hanging out and stuff like that, and the old guy, all that crap. I was just like, wow, like this is like what it must have like pretty much was like a little bit in some way. And I was just expecting like what Mark said. You were just expecting everybody to die at the end, like all the actors and stuff. But I loved like you were able to see like revenge on them this time. I thought that was so funny and clever of Tarantino to do that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point now that you mentioned the ranch scene and kind of thinking back on it. This movie does a really good job of like subverting your expectations in a way, right? Or at the very least building tension, right? So to what Mark said before, at the ending scene when they first opened their door, there's a ton of tension because you're like, that was like kind of funny how Cliff just was like, can I help you? But at the same time, you're still like, Cliff is on acid right now. Is he still going to be the guy who beat Bruce Lee? And I think you could say the same thing about the ranch scene, because it does a lot of really good things. One of which was the ending fight where it just beats the shit out of that one kid. That was so funny. But at the same time too, I think it does a really good job of developing Cliff's character because there's so much tension where he keeps on insisting on seeing the owner of the ranch, right? And everyone's like, no, and like he's just like, no, I'm gonna fucking go see it. That's a good way of developing his character in terms of like showing he's just that confident of a person. But at the same time though, when you're walking down that hallway, like I said before, there is so much tension, like the horror movie levels of tension. And I think
you keep seeing him milling about in the background as he's walking towards the house. 100%. And it's like you don't know, like this is an imaginary man. This guy never existed. He could die in this scene. You don't know. You're scared for him. Sharon Tate is going to make it to a certain point in the movie. You don't know when Brad Pitt is going to exit.
Oh, exactly. And we all know, to Mark's point too, like it's one of those things where we know about Manson, right? The characters don't. So inherently, that already raises the tension. I think, I think that was besides the ending scene, like that was my favorite sequence in the entire movie, because of all the other things that it did very well. Um, Yeah, did you guys have any other thoughts on the ranch scene? Like, there's a whole bunch of components. Like, I like the little part where they had like to make money, they did horseback riding in the valley for like random people. I thought it was like a little like nice touch. But I'd love to hear you guys thought there's anything else that stuck out to you in that sequence.
I love that there's a little callback to the ranch scene during the climax where it's the awkward like Mexican standoff moment where he's just pointing the gun at Brad Pitt,
Uh,
and he has a moment where he's like, "Hey, I know you. Yeah, you were the guys from the ranch." And
yeah.
all the Manson people have this look of realization where they're like, "Oh shit, we broke into this guy's house," and it's wonderful. It's great. The point Brad Pitt at a hippie, and I'm happy.
It was good. It was good. What else did you like, Andrew? Was there anything else about the ranch sequence, since you brought it up, that you felt like really stuck out to you?
Well, I think just leading up to it, I've been taking Austin Hicks's advice. If everybody here knows Austin Hicks, which I'm assuming everyone does that listens to the channel, he does not like watching previews for a movie. That's
Mm,
just like that's just like how he is. He doesn't like watching a preview or a trailer. He just goes into the movie 90% of the time, just like ready to just experience it without having any
right.
further knowledge of it.
Going in blind.
Um,
Yeah.
Right. I did not know that they were going to throw the Mansons in there at first. In all honesty, um, I loved when Pussycat like takes Cliff to the trailer, to the to where she lives and everything like that, and then you see like all the cultish people, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, they're totally going to bring Charles Manson in this now. Like I just thought it was just like a good execution and a good leading up to bringing out all these bad guys. In all honesty.
Yeah, yeah, I'd have to agree with you, man. And I think I just want to echo again. We've said this a lot. Like the production design of that entire ranch was so well done, right? It looked authentic. Everyone was wearing period, clothing. The Cliff's car was great. I think they really knocked it out of the park of that scene. Now, there is one person that we haven't really talked about a lot, and I think that's Leo's kind of like sequence and his whole arc of being on this TV show.
Yes.
I would love, love, love to hear what all of you, thought of when you saw that. And there's actually, I also want to mention too, the performances from like even like the side characters in this movie were really great. Like we already mentioned, Kurt Russell. I thought Timothy Oliphant like was great for his small part too. I thought the girl who played like the child actress was great too. But yeah, I would just love to hear what you guys think of Leo's entire like part, because that was really like the movie almost like stopped and just like this is Leo's like story kind of thing. Like this is his part.
That whole little bit with him filming the Western TV show is actually one of my favorite bits.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
mean, also because like I love Western stuff, but just the whole bit. I don't know. It's just something about the way he played that character made him very endearing, even though he was kind of a Hollywood fraud.
Yeah,
Like you get the sense where it's like he's a little egotistical. He's kind of sort of using his friend. He's not the best dude. But
right.
all the same, like when he kept blowing the line and then finally got it, it's like that's a nice payoff. I like this. I
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
this character. I like this scene. I like all these people that are involved with it. And I love his friggin' line about the 7 goddamn whiskey sours. That bit in the trailer is one of my favorite parts of the entire movie, just in terms of little character moments.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, man. No pushback from me. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I just thought he did a really good job portraying like how actors like what they experience. Like, I mean, who knows if he's ever experienced moments like these where he feels like he's at the top and then he kind of hits rock bottom and he's
Mm-hmm.
even struggling for lines. He kept saying line, line, like at
Yeah,
this one point in the movie. Um, and then they brought in this little girl, Trudy, right?
I
I think that
forget off the top of my head, but
I think it was
I think we
Trudy.
both know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought it was just like a little nice little scene, like between a young little girl like acting in a movie, not really there yet to where Leo was or is,
Sure.
and she was kind of like helping him out and stuff like that, and she was trying to help him with his lines and stuff, and she didn't really care about like the fact that he was like this famous actor or anything like that, but she cared about like that he was just like he was starting to become a nice person to her and stuff like that. She
Hmm.
saw that he was just a nice guy overall, and he had flaws and stuff like that, and she wanted to help him. I just thought it was cool how he portrayed like the Hollywood person, like what they go through on a day-to-day basis, and like the stress and the emotions and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think you hit really the nail on the head. Leo, in this role especially, I haven't. I'm not gonna say I've seen all of his filmography, but I feel like this is almost the most vulnerable we've ever seen Leo in a role, right? Like I think he broke down at least twice, right? He broke down in his trailer, and there was that one part where he was talking to the girl and he was talking about the story of the book he's
Yeah.
reading, and then he just starts crying because he realizes the book is about himself, really. And like those are like really profoundly human moments, right? And where he like yells at himself because he's drunk and like gets himself in the zone, and then he knocks it out of the park, and then there's that euphoria of just like, yes, I pulled myself out of the rut. I think that's all like profoundly human moments. I think we've all had those moments in our life, and they should be celebrated. And the movie does a very good job of showing that in the context of an actor, right? I think it's super easy to think of like actors as like snobs and whatnot, but what their profession is so unique that the challenges are unique, and they're not things that we really know. The movie does a good job of articulating that. I want to echo something that Mark said before about Cliff is like the ultimate best friend. Like, let's be real, he's like a glorified like butler in a way, like
Yeah.
chauffeur. Like Leo's paying him like, yo, just be my best friend kind of thing. But like even in the beginning, right, where he has that talk with Al Pacino and he like walks out, he's like started crying, and like immediately Brad Pitt notices what's wrong. He's just like, yeah, what's wrong, partner? Like it was a very subtle moment, like in theory, like it's just like it's just a friend checking up on him, but like you can tell that Brad Pitt genuinely cares, right? He does all these random things for him, picks him up from work, like even gives him like one short motivational line like right before he gets on set. Like he really does care, and I think their relationship is one of the best parts of this movie.
It feels like almost like an Alfred to Batman kind of like relationship.
Yeah, that's a good analogy for sure.
Because like Bruce Lee, Bruce, not Bruce Lee, Bruce Wayne's like in his own world, and he's like focused on the people around him, like taking care of the city and stuff like that, and
Right.
taking care of himself. And Alfred's like this selfless, loving, caring, hospitable person, and he's only focused on Bruce Wayne, nobody else, like just helping him and being there for him and taking care of him and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Mark, what would you think of that part of the movie? Was that one of your favorite parts too?
Yeah, I mean, just their whole relationship. Like, in a way, Sharon Tate is kind of like the soul of the movie,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
their relationship is definitely like the heart of it.
Yeah.
There's that little moment after the whole Italy detour when he gets back and he's like, "Yeah, look, partner, I'm married, so we can't afford to keep you around anymore." And I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Oh, dude, that was heartbreaking.
I hope they'll still hang out. Oh
Yeah.
no.
It was also funny too, like even up until the end, right? Like to what you're saying before, Cliff is the ultimate best friend. Like he was carrying all like the wife's luggage and stuff at the
Yeah.
airport. I was like, wow, man, this guy is dedicated.
It's like there's 15 minutes left in this movie, and I'm sitting here like, but the imaginary movie men are gonna hang out still, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I think that they're definitely like I said before. I think we all agree that um, the scenes that include Brad Pitt and Leo are probably the strongest parts of the movie. Um, that said, though, we've talked a lot about the praises. We've touched a little bit on some of the stuff we didn't like. I know for myself and Andrew, especially, we really didn't like the stuff with Sharon Tate just because it narratively kind of falls a little flat. But I'd love to hear if there's anything else that you felt like really detracted from your experience in the movie.
Mark.
Uh, I mean, nothing's really coming to mind.
Hmm.
It's in terms of like really detracting.
Right.
I felt the length a little bit. Uh, Not as much as some of Tarantino's other movies. Like I love Hateful Eight. I was on the edge of my seat the entirety of Hateful Eight, but I also really felt the length for that
I'm
one.
gonna give you. I'm gonna give it another try just for you, Mark. I promise.
It's it's
That was a
it's one of
passable
the
movie.
it's one of those movies where it's like it's a slow burn. And if you let it ramp up, you eventually, when you realize the boulder is rolling down the hill, it's too late to slow down. Like once it gets going, it gets going. But this one is not so much in terms of how it's just a stream of events leading to a dramatic climax. There's a little bit more meandering, but
Sure.
like I said, I felt that the scenes of just Brad Pitt driving around and stuff, like I felt like that really helped add to the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So there are parts where it slows down, but I think it all worked to the overall benefit of the film.
Word. Word. Andrew, anything else that really stuck out to you that you want to point out?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was just okay. May I just say that Leo definitely this was one of his best performances in movies, in
Oh,
my opinion.
I 100%
One of
agree with
the
you.
best.
Absolutely.
With that being said, though, it was just it was a very heavy movie most of the time. It was kind of like too much heaviness. Like it was just like, okay, like we get it, we get it, we get it, and then it was just slow. It was on top of that, it was slow, and it felt like it was taking forever. And then it picks up at the very end. It was just kind of not what I expected this movie to be. I felt like I was expecting more out of this movie, and at the end of the day, it wasn't even close to like what I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a sentiment that I would probably really share. Andrew kind of already went there, but I do want to throw it just in case there's anything else. We could go into final ratings unless there's something that either of you really want to talk about in the movie before we get to that.
All right, so final ratings for me. In my opinion, if you're a Tarantino fan like me, I am a Tarantino. I have all of his movies on Blu-ray DVD. Um, you gotta see this movie at least once. Like I said that even about the Joker movie. Like
Right.
that is a movie that you have to see at least once. Like I don't care. Like if you don't want to see it in the theaters or anything like that. It's out of theaters now. But if you want to wait for it on DVD, then that's fine. You should watch it. Um, but for me, it's a one timer. Like I saw it like literally once upon a time, and I would have to give it. I would give it a 6 out of 10. For me, it was not something I would see again. I'm happy that I saw it because
Right.
I love Tarantino,
Right.
but it was not one of his best ones.
Yeah, so you give it like a matinee, basically. Like you wouldn't go pay full price, but it's not like a rental kind of thing. Like, yeah, I pay for a discount kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Word, word. Mark, how about you?
So for this one, I would say, obviously, if you're a Tarantino fan, I mean, chances are you've seen it already. It's a Tarantino movie. Uh, but I mean, if you're like me, if you're into that whole '70s vibe, if you're a fan of atmosphere in movies, if that's the kind of thing that really rings your bell, then I think this one's really going to work for you. In terms of numerical rating, I'm torn. I don't know. I don't know if I'd give it. I feel like giving it an 8.5 would be a cop out. At that point, I should just round up to a 9. But
Mm,
uh, screw it. I'll say 8.5. Spill scale again. Tough to decide between full price or better than sex. Probably very high full price. I'd say
okay.
it made it into my top 5 of last year.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even know
It was
that,
it
Mark.
was number 5, but it was still in there.
Listen, it's still made it. If you're number five, you're still in the top five, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I think I'm just and I'm actually in the middle of both of you. I think this movie, like we've said before, there are so many aspects about it that are knocked out of the park, like the production design, the costume design, the cinematography, the music, the atmosphere. Like these are all like objectively very well, if not knocked out of the park, right? Kind of thing. Like these are better than your average movie, better than your like random Netflix movie kind of thing. Really well
Oh
done.
yeah.
But where it falls apart, and I say that as not meaning that like the movie is terrible, but where it really gets to me is something I share with Andrew is that it's a little too long. and I think that some of it just doesn't make sense narratively. Like in a vacuum, it works, but narratively, sometimes it gets kind of lost, and we get into this whole thing. Quentin Tarantino be like, "Hey, look at this thing. This is cool, right? But what about this? And what about this kind of thing?" I think another thing too, Quentin Tarantino, calm down with the feet thing, man. Like, I get it. Like, good for you, do you? But like, we do not need that many close-ups of feet. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna hard agree with that because that's the thing. I feel bad because it's like, all right, no judgment, whatever.
Yeah, like whatever.
That's,
Listen, different
that's
strokes for
okay.
different folks. You know, like if that's
But,
your thing, that's okay.
But like, it was specifically the scene where Sharon Tate goes to watch The Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
And she's chilling in the movie theater, and it's just big ass, dirty ass, 70s ass.
Oh my god!
And I started laughing my ass off. It completely took me out of the scene. And I was like, I feel bad because this wouldn't be taking me out of the scene if this wasn't in a Quentin Tarantino movie. But these combinations of variables prevents me from taking this shot seriously.
Oh, definitely. And there's also that part of me too. Immediately, as someone who like grew up like where you're not allowed to do that, like in the house kind of thing. Like as soon as she did that, I was like, man, like take your dirty ass feet off this chair, man. Clean your feet. But overall, I give it a matinee. I would say like it's probably on the lower side of a matinee than the higher side. But it's not a bad movie by any stretch of the means. I think it's a really, really good movie, just not a great one. And I don't think it's Tarantino's best. I think for me, that's still like what I love is Django Unchained and Pulp Fiction, personally.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting for sure. Like it's. I think you could say for sure that is unlike any other movie in his filmography, but at the same time, it takes like little bits and pieces from all of his filmography, which I think is very, very interesting. All right, so before we do shout outs and everything like that, I do want to ask both of you one thing. Do you think Tarantino's actually going to stick this whole thing of like, oh, I'm only going to make 10 films and then I'm retiring?
If he does that, like, I'll have mad respect for him for keeping his word, in all honesty, but I would not want him to leave off with this movie just being his last one. I feel like he needs to have one blowout movie, just like him just going all out, not making it too long, something crazy, like something along the lines of like a Kill Bill, or like a Django Unchained, so just something crazy. If he leaves off with this movie, I'll be kind of disappointed. But man, I would really hope for just one more movie, in all honesty, if that's the truth.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this would be the 9th one, right? Because Hateful Eight was number 8.
Yeah, and Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 are considered one, according to him.
Yes. Yeah. So that would mean we got one more in the pipes there. I wouldn't be surprised if he did just one more big Tarantino movie, and then he was like, "That's it." But at the same time, like, I remember like a year or two ago, he was supposed to be making a fucking R-rated Star Trek movie.
Oh, yes. I remember hearing about this, yeah.
Yeah, he sure as hell wouldn't let that be his 10th and final film. So, I would say I wouldn't be... now that that's apparently fallen through, I wouldn't be shocked if he was like, all right, number 10, this is going to be the last one. I retire undefeated. But at the same time, he strikes me as a guy who just loves movies too much to where it's one of those things where I wouldn't be shocked, but at the same time, part of me would be.
Yeah,
I'd be like, it's like, oh, he did it, which makes sense because it's him, but also, wow, he did it.
Totally get what you're saying, man. We'll see. Yeah, I'd have to echo kind of your sentiment. I think it's very clear, abundantly clear, that Tarantino is passionate about movies, and that's his strength and also his detriment in his movies, as we've kind of gone through this film. I think it would be great if he stick to his guns. I think that's a rare thing. It's kind of like the retired boxer who actually stays retired, right? But at the same time, Mark's right. Like, this is a guy who clearly lives and breathes films, and I think that when you're a genius like Tarantino, once you get that itch of the story that you feel like you have to tell, there's no like getting rid of it kind of thing. That's my observation.
I could see him doing one more, moving on to novels or plays, because he did that with
Hateful Eight.
That's apparently Hateful Eight was going to be a stage show, and I think he wrote a sequel novel to Django.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's interesting. I know that he also wrote scripts for like the TV series that's like kind of like Leo's in the movie. Apparently, he wrote actually like episodes, and that he wants to
Yeah,
actually make it happen.
that's
Yeah,
he wanted to make Bounty Law.
yeah.
That'd be great. I would love a
I would
Tarantino
watch
take
it. I would watch it
on
100%.
a like white hats versus black hats style like 60s 70s western serial. I think that'd be a blast.
Didn't he
Especially if
already
there
make?
was no twist. If it was just straight up that. If there was no like blood or swearing. If it was just Tarantino emulating the like squeaky clean westerns of yesteryear. That'd be fun to watch, I think.
Oh, definitely. I'm sorry, Andrew. What were you gonna say?
Sorry about that. I thought Tarantino already made 10 films.
Well, I think he considers Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 as one film, and that's why it's actually at number 9.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
didn't
you're
know
right. He's technically directed 10 films, but he just considers those two as like one kind of thing.
that. I honestly thought this was his last one. Not gonna lie.
And now we got one more. Don't worry. We got at least one more. Who knows what it's going to be. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this review. It feels good to be with the boys again and to be able to talk about the things that we love. But, I'd love to give this opportunity for you guys to give any shout outs, words you want to say to the people. The floor is yours.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Adam, for bringing me on here. It was great talking to you too.
Of course, man.
Thank you. Shout out to Jake in Chicago. I miss you, man. I hope you're listening to this. I can't wait to see you and go see a movie and do a review with you. And shout out to Austin. I know you have to get up early for work tomorrow. Wish you could have hopped on, but when you get a chance, just take a listen to this and then tell me what you think of the movie.
Amen, brother. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, no, this was a blast. Hopefully we get some more of these running. I'm not quite as active in the social media spheres as I used to be, but I'm always down to talk some movies with my friends. It's a
Hell
good time.
yeah. That's what it's all about, boys. I got to give a shout out to both of you and obviously all the people in our crew. Mi Familia. It might be all, we're all separated, especially because of Corona, but it feels good to be able to come back and just to hop on a call and, just do things just like old times. I think that's really, really rare. So I appreciate all of you. And of course, everyone that watched, even if you're not part of the crew, thank you so much for watching. If you can subscribe, I promise that I'm going to try to get more of these kind of reviews organized just so that we can continue to just talk about, the stuff that we love. And of course, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Bomb, BOMMB. I'll post some updates there and also stuff related to my work if that's actually something that you really care about. But just want to give you a shout out to all of you. And we're back. We're back, baby.